Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning to you. It's the 28th of May, and I still got a technical issue here, which means that you will not be able to call in. I thought we had it fixed, but apparently we don't. So I'm sure as hell hoping to get it done by tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be our first Throwback Thursday. And one of the things about Throwback Thursday is I am hoping that you will take a more active role. Some of you. I know most of you are not inclined, which is okay. But back in the day, throwback, callers were just a whole lot more of the reason, I think, that the shows were better, without a doubt. Not just, one voice squawking on. So there's all that. It's odd, though, because today a lot of the stuff that's come up in my purview could easily go back and go into a Throwback Thursday, but I'm loath to use it. I'm not going to use it all, because then I'll be bereft tomorrow. But I just am not inclined. I was at a lovely dinner last night, and of course the talk, you can't have a night out with friends without him intruding and casting a pall. And it just I just don't want to give him too much today. Although, you open the paper, or you don't even open it, the front page is just filled with the latest corruption and outrage. So let's just not start there. So where are we going to start? Okay, we'll start with, there was something, this was in the opinion section of the New York Times, the print today. I would imagine it showed up on digital copies earlier. And it's titled, "Oh no, she's eating all alone." And I was drawn immediately to that headline, because I am a single woman for most of my life. And I have eaten alone for much of my life. And this, of course, though, it means she's eating alone at a restaurant. And it's written by a woman who eats alone in public, and she talks about the reactions that you invariably feel when you are a woman eating alone. The first being a sense of pity, that you're somehow a pathetic creature, incapable of finding anyone to accompany you out to dinner. And so, I mean, this is not the same kind of reaction that two women eating alone. It's just one woman eating alone elicits often this. Well, there's a number of possibilities, but the sense that she's a reject is huge. And you feel it often the minute you walk in, because if there's a host or a hostess, a maitre d', somebody to seat you, uh, they invariably, it is so bizarre, they invariably say, only one. Um, Now, they don't say that to any other group. Well, you're not a group if you're one. They don't say only two, only five. They say only one, and then give you that sort of look of pity. And it happens so often that, you expect it. In fact, I started saying it before they could. Sometimes I'd pick up my finger and I'd say, only one. Um, and clearly, this didn't upset me enough to stop going out to eat by myself. Uh, I got a very, yeah, it was fine, but I was bemused by the just constancy of that reaction. Um, and I suppose some single men will get only one too. The fact is, they don't like singles because you take up usually a table for two, and that they'd rather have that table filled. So only one. And then, there's this I and part of it is, I mean, men do not get the same reaction. If you see a man dining alone, you don't have the same thoughts because men are perceived as people who are free to wander alone into the world, to be in the public square unaccompanied. But even I mean the social construct is uh, so ingrained that women alone are somehow in danger. And in fact, there's some evidence that that might be true, right? But so there's also this social stigma about a woman dining alone, and it it pushes against what is considered a woman's proper place, that she is to be coupled or she's to stay home. Um, and this article, which I didn't think was really very good, but the woman here says that there's two reactions. Some people look at a woman eating alone with pity. That's the one I've felt most. And others with admiration, as if what she's doing is a brave act of individualism and going out despite the embarrassment of being alone. And I was thinking, most of the time that I ate alone a lot when I was younger, when I was a young professional, um, and when I anchored the late night newscast in Madison, Wisconsin, and I put in work in the afternoon. I was of the 6 o'clock news, and then I took an hour off for dinner. And there was this little steakhouse right around the corner, and I swear I went into that steakhouse and I had a steak every night. This is before we knew that that wasn't healthy, but it sure was good. And oh, I sat down and I had my steak, and I had some wine with my steak. And I thought nothing of it, and I was such a fixture at my table. It was it was nothing. It was actually a moment of calm and quiet in an otherwise very busy day. So I think a lot of women eating alone can be a true pleasure. Just have to say. Uh, so anyway, and I mean there were places that did not allow a woman in by herself. And up until, I mean, you'd be surprised, up until I was a woman capable of eating alone, sorry, women must be accompanied by a gentleman. In fact, in 1970, there was a federal lawsuit against a New York restaurant that was that banned women altogether. It called itself McSorley's Old Ale House, and it was intended for men only. But it wasn't a private club, and consequently, it lost that lawsuit. And in its 117th year in operation, had to let the first woman cross its threshold. But it was not unusual in certainly in the first half of the 20th century for women not to be able to be served if they were unaccompanied. Oh gosh. Okay, so there's that. Okay, now I just want to quickly go into just a few horrors of that uh, certainly got played up a lot, and that's his continuing pardoning of these crooks. I mean, and the crooks he pardons are people whose crimes are the same crimes he commits. So it's true, as far as I know, he's not pardoning necessarily murderers. He does pardon tax evaders constantly, and he pardons people who also give him money, so you can pay to get out of jail if you simply pay the man who has the power to pardon you. And that was the latest that the New York Times found that egregious enough to stick on its front page today. Pardon for a donor's son after $1 million dinner. But this is how uh, the thief in chief operates. I mean, my God, it's something. If you step foot now into the White House, which doesn't belong to him, it belongs to us, you can expect to be shaken down. If you want anything from this guy, you can expect to be shaken down. And now it is understood. He has made it clear. Uh, so yeah, this guy who he pardoned, his mom paid $1 million to Donald Trump to have a lousy dinner at Mar-a-Lago, and less than 3 weeks later, her son is out and free of a jail term, and free of the over $4 million restitution he was supposed to pay us. And then there's the latest reality show. I Who ever heard of this reality show? I mean, I don't. Uh, I never heard of them. Let me find it here. It's a husband and wife who had a long running reality show I happily missed that apparently showed them and their children in a kind of like sitcom way. And they were very wealthy people, so you got to obviously enjoy their lifestyle and get a bird's eye view of how the rich lived. And of course, I can't find it. They were called the Chrisleys, and I guess their daughter somehow got to Trump, and Trump said something to her like, "Well, they don't look like terrorists. They don't look like TV bad guys," and he likes reality stars who get caught doing tax evasion. And so these two, the Chrisleys, got sprung by the president because it's not something he comprehends as as a crime. It really is. It really is amazing. Oh, here it is. And his press secretary had this to say: "The president is always pleased to give well-deserving Americans a second chance, especially those who have been unfairly targeted and overly prosecuted by an unjust justice system." So if you're somebody with money who cheats the government through tax evasion and other schemes, you are somebody that Donald Trump has an affinity to. And odds are you will be pardoned if you just slip him a million or two. I don't know, the price could be going up. Who do you also? You got some sheriff, a sheriff who was convicted of federal bribery and fraud. He accepted money. He accepted money in exchange for appointing wealthy businessmen as auxiliary deputies who did nothing. Well, Trump would look at something like that and he said, "Well, what's wrong with that? I mean, what? He was going to jail? That's how I run my business here." And for 75,000, as I said, he just got a million for pardoning the one guy, and this sheriff goes to jail for $75,000. Oh. So, yes, the president is always pleased to give well-deserving Americans a second chance, especially if they're willing victims of extortion. Can't make it up. So, um, I mean, everything he does is illegal. If he does something legal or constitutional, it is purely by happenstance. It's a unintentional, just a slight quirk of the moment, a mistake. Doesn't happen often. But because everything he does is unconstitutional, as you know, every time he does something, somebody sues him. I mean, states sue him, Organizations sue him, universities sue him, people wrongly jailed sue him. I mean, he has so many lawsuits, and he that's his preferred playground, the court system, because you can, it's like a bad basketball game where one team is just stalling. He just stalls. You can play the clock, slow the game down. And ultimately, when you do that enough, you end up getting the desired effect anyway, win or lose, because the 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 result comes so far after the offense that really there's nothing left to happen, especially if you're the one person in the country that the Supreme Court, in its infinite wisdom, has essentially given immunity for anything you might do. But somebody has actually been tallying all of these lawsuits, and inasmuch as some, well, I mean, they do, a verdict is reached, a judgment made, and then of course he appeals it, so it goes to the next level, the stalling game. But if you add up how he's doing with the courts, I mean, the sense you get from just seeing headlines, right, is that he ain't doing very well. Well, my God. He right now, as of today, has a 96% loss rate in federal courts. 96% of judges who have been appealed to by people and organizations he has wronged side with those he has wronged and say, you can't do that. 96%. Now remember that in his first term, he and Mitch McConnell made a point of not doing much, but one thing they did was pack the federal judiciary with their people. Right? He was, my God, there were judges flying into those on those benches left, right, and center. Because if your intent is to break the law, you want your guys sitting behind the bench. And what's fascinating about this 96% loss rate is if you break it down into Republican nominated judges, including Trump nominated judges, and Democrat appointed judges, there's very little difference. 80% plus of Democratic appointed justices have ruled against the administration, and 72 plus percent of Republican. So it's just an 8% difference, 72 and 80, and those are huge numbers. So even his own appointees just can't, because the illegality, the unconstitutionality is so blatant and egregious. Okay, and that's enough. So, Chrisley Knows Best, Milton says. That's the reality show I happily missed. And the Chrisleys are free and clear and have been given the green light to go ahead and grift. Okay, so I want to take on something I usually avoid, but I can't. I've gotten so beside myself about it, so sick about it that I can't anymore. And that is this incessant war of Netanyahu's. The he is doing in Gaza and frankly in the West Bank is just, I'm sorry, it is sickening. Sickening. I It's got to be stopped. It's got to be stopped. And the thing is, and because I know Israel a bit, been there 3 times. I know Israelis, and he is despised like Trump is despised. But the divide in Israel is much like the divide in this country. And it's the same people who hold him up, keep him in power, as keep Trump here in power. Not totally, but a huge part of it are people who are religious nationalists. Now, in the United States, it's Christian nationalists that have helped set his agenda and who faithfully go to the polls and support him, who see him as a Messiah. And in Israel, it is the Orthodox who do the same for Netanyahu. And in fact, without those Orthodox, he'd go down in a second. And so he is almost a puppet to them. You know, when Israel was founded 77 years ago, it was founded as a Jewish state, yes, but a secular state in many ways. The Jews who founded it were not particularly religious. If anything, a lot of them were a bunch of commies. It's why they set up the kibbutz. That's a sort of a communistic communal farm, communal communities. They had a number of different kinds, but if you were a member of those communities, everyone put their money into the same pot. And those are the people that built that country. And many of the Orthodox were opposed to it. And many of the Orthodox that are the most fervently, I would say, racist and crazed and seeing the Bible as some literal work, they were, many of them, born here. They're Americans. There's tons of them. A lot of the ones that have put up those West Bank settlements, taken land from people who have lived there, Arabs who have lived there, and put up these settlements, and who see that as part of their land. It just can't get enough, right? Because it belongs to them. They're American. Ultra-orthodox Jews who don't serve in the army, most of whom don't work. They're on welfare. Their job is to read the holy books. And they procreate like rabbits, and consequently their voting strength has grown and grown, and they've come from the US, and they have children and more children and children and children, and yeehaw, Benjamin Netanyahu. And he's not ultra-orthodox, but he's their boy. And without them, he wouldn't be where he is, and without them, he'd be in jail. Sort of like the one we got, Trump. They're peas in a pod. So I gotta tell you, they've got to be stopped. It's got to stop. And I'm going to read you uh, something that a former prime minister of Israel said. He's still alive, Ehud Olmert. He was sort of if you were to place him politically, sort of moderate. Ehud Olmert wrote a piece that appeared recently in Haaretz, one of the big newspapers there. And among other things, he said this about Netanyahu and his government. The government is currently waging a war without purpose, without goals or clear planning, and with no chances of success. What we are doing in Gaza now is a war of extermination. Indiscriminate, Jesus, Colin, indiscriminate, limitless, cruel, and criminal killing of civilians. And at the end of his essay, he wrote, yes, Israel is committing war crimes. This was the guy who had Netanyahu's job. And if a man of this stature is saying that out loud, I can assure you that is the feeling of so many Israelis, but they can't dislodge him because of the ultra-orthodox who are holding him. They've got the numbers. And a guy who held the high position of essentially Speaker of the House a guy named Avram Berg, is very clear in trying to explain the problem here. And he says he doesn't think Trump or American Jews have a clear enough comprehension of how powerful the ultra-orthodox and these damn religious settler nationalist creeps, most of whom, from as far as I can tell, are from the United States, how much they have grown and how much they see this as a religious war. And, you know, when people are seeing a religious war, they're nuts and they commit horrific crimes. All religious wars devolve into that. And he's the one, the former Speaker of the Knesset, the parliament, he's the one who has said Netanyahu is actually their pawn. He's not the real player. You tell them, what are you doing? We've got to stop this. We could make peace with Saudi Arabia. We could have a future. And they shrug, he says, and tell you, we're waiting for the Messiah. You tell them, he says, you could have peace with Syria. And they'll tell you, we already have Syria. It's part of greater Israel. And you tell them about international law. I'm sorry, international law. And they will quote you biblical law. So he says the real divide in this incredibly unhappy country, Israel, is not between the conservatives there and the progressives there. It's between those who believe in democracy and those who are Jewish, nationalist, ultra orthodox cultists. And so, even though Israel began as a triumph of secular nationalism over these religious nutcases, what has happened relatively recently, it's flipped. And you have now the religious nationalists, these ultra orthodox, triumphing, holding more power than do the secular Democrats. And that's the problem. And Thomas Friedman, who knows Israel inside and out, did a piece, I think it was today. And he said, you know, what's happening there is so horrific. And that the Israelis are being so ill served by their government. And the Palestinians, well, the Palestinians were offered up by Hamas. I mean, it was, in some respects, brilliant. They knew the massacre. They started the war. They knew the massacre of October 7th of those, you know, total innocents in Israel, the brutal ugliness of their attack would create this huge reaction. And because Hamas hid in the tunnels they had constructed with the money they'd been given to feed their people, to educate their people. They went underground and hid, and their people suffered the barrage of Israel's understandable rage. And this was their plan. We'll have the Israelis kill our people, and we know they will. We will incense them, drive them with insane vengeance, and we'll hide, and our people will die. The way Friedman puts it is this: they attacked Israeli border communities on October 7, 2023, and when Israel predictably retaliated, they essentially offered up their citizens as a collective human sacrifice to win global sympathy. That's the plan, and it worked. To show the Israelis as these unbelievable killers, not killed, killers, to win sympathy, and all they had to do was offer up their own women and children. And he says, Friedman, Hamas is still operating, but Gaza is unlivable. And yet, Hamas's leadership is still saying it will not turn over all the remaining hostages unless Israel agrees to leave Gaza and return to an open-ended ceasefire. And Friedman says, really? Israel should leave Gaza and accept a ceasefire? That's a great idea. Hamas would achieve that victory, meaning it fought this entire war. All of those people dead, next to no buildings in Gaza intact, in order to get back to the very place they were on October 6, 2023, before they massacred those Israelis. That's all they're saying they want now. You Israelis get out. They were out. And we want a ceasefire. There was. So Friedman points out the unbelievable stupidity, insanity of what Hamas has achieved, what they've done. Yeah, they got sympathy, and they have helped make Israel into a pariah state. That's big. But their people? Friedman says, history will remember Hamas and its leadership as mendacious fools. They thought they were unleashing an apocalypse on Israel and instead unleashed an apocalypse on their own people. And they also ended up giving Netanyahu a reason to destroy their ally, Hezbollah. So a lot of good, came out of that attack on those settlers, not settlers, Israelis, in those communities on the Gaza border, and those kids at the music festival. And what has been accomplished? So I just want to say, I wanted to say that. And I also wanted to say that how quickly the news of these two young Jews who were gunned down in D.C. Disappeared from our consciousness, um, and they were killed in large part because of Hamas's success in making uh, their cause uh, so sympathetic, but the Jews who were mowed down were two young people who were gunned down because they were Jews. So the unleashing of anti-Semitism that has resulted has been astonishing. You know, at first, I when I saw the headlines, I thought, oh, they'd come out of an event at the Israeli consulate or something, and that's where the attack was. That's not where the attack was. It was at an event for the American Jewish Committee, the AJC, which is a charitable organization that I regularly donate to. It's a good charity. It has nothing to do with Gaza and the Palestinians, nothing. So what was known is that Jews would be there. The killer meant to kill Jews. And in fact, this event was for people who wanted to talk about finding peace and building bridges. But if you're a Jew in America, you realize that I could have been at that event. I could have walked out instead of them. I could be the dead Jew. And American Jews realize that now. And certainly here in Pittsburgh, we realize it because we got Jew blood just a few blocks from where I'm sitting right now, murdered because they were Jews. So make no mistake. I think I said yesterday that the local Jewish paper here had a question. They have a weekly quiz, poll, and the question had been, have you considered your personal safety um, when attending any Jewish event here in Pittsburgh? And that they're talking about, has it changed your consideration of whether you'd go somewhere in the Jewish community? And I was really curious about what the result of that question would be. And 75% said no, I have not. 25% said yes. And I have to say, I didn't answer the thing, but I would have said yes. It's crossed my mind. It hasn't stopped me from going, but it's crossed my mind that if I wanted to kill a bunch of Jews, that would be a great place to go. And so to see Jewish organizations that I support holding defense classes, teaching Jews how to, avoid dangerous situations. This is where American Jews are now. And it's all because there is a conflation. It shows that Jews are, as we we thought we were, are not quite accepted as Americans. They are Jews first. The definition of terrorism: a violent act meant to intimidate, to make a national, religious, or ethnic group feel fear, afraid to congregate. Uh, I needed to say that. I know I don't normally talk about it. And I can assure you, there are those in the Jewish community who would disagree with me on some of what I've said, if not all. They'd be coming at me from all sides because we Jews are a fractious lot. But I must say, I feel such grief and loss. Hey, did you see Kanye's new Hitler tribute? The three-word chorus of Kanye West's latest viral hit song is about as perverse as any refrain ever set to music, said the music critic in the New Yorker. But they don't tell me what the three-word chorus of Kanye West is. What? Kill the Jews? What is it? They don't. I hate that when you read something and you're not told what the three-word chorus of Kanye West's latest viral song is about as perverse as any refrain ever set to music. So, um, what is it? Heil Hitler, I guess, is the name of the song, but that's not three words. So, what? It says there's a menacing accompanying video, and man, this has been viewed 10 million times on Elon Musk's X because he likes dead Jews. Wow. The Wall Street Journal said not long ago, a song paying homage to Hitler would have been shut out of popular culture. Not so now, in the age of X and TikTok. My God. My God. Okay. Um, what else? Forgive me. It takes a lot out of me. Hey, did you see Fetterman ended up on the front page again of the Times? That's got to be one unhappy guy. Uh, and it said specifically, I mean, I read the article, but there's nothing new in it. It said here, in an interview, Mr. Fetterman, who represents 13 million people, said he felt he had been unfairly shamed into fulfilling his senatorial duties. What? As one of the 13 million, I just want to say, if you have to be shamed into, if you're going to complain about being shamed into doing your job, then you shouldn't have that job, obviously. Because the 13 million people deserve better. Duh. It says he feels he's been unfairly shamed because he didn't participate in committee work or cast procedural votes on the floor. He dismissed it as a performative waste of time. Well, you know what? In some respects, he might be right. But it's the job, Senator. There isn't any of us who haven't had a job that we feel a lot of parts of it are annoying and performative and useless, but they have to be done. It's what you get paid to do. What a child he is. It says here, he said he was, quote, showing up now because people in the media have weaponized the fact that he hasn't been showing up. He said it really is a product of his decision to spend more time at home and less on the mundane tasks of being a senator. Again, I say, Senator Fetterman, I think we'd all like to have a job where we could say, you know, so much of this is just mundane, and I'm going home. I'm still going to get all my pay, right? Yep. I'm going to get my perks, right? Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's mundane, it's performative, and I'm just not into it. And they actually want me to wear clothes. You know, nah. He's feeling very sorry for himself. He says, my doctor warned years ago, after it's public that you're getting help for depression, people will weaponize that. And that's exactly what happened. It's really shaken me that people are willing to weaponize that I got help. As I recall, Senator, when you got help, you were lifted up by media, by your constituents, by everybody. Maybe not so much some Republicans, but nobody got on you for getting help. You got tons of sympathy and positive coverage. That's not what this is about. This is about the fact that you're not doing your job. God almighty. Yeah, and one of you points out on chat that getting attention is the job now. Yeah, and he was good at that. He is good at that, but this is not the kind of attention he wanted. You know, yeah, it's just not. And I feel for his family. I really do. But I also feel for us, the citizenry of Pennsylvania, who now have, what, two senators, one who doesn't want to be bothered, and the other who's a gazillionaire who just wants to rubber stamp anything Donald Trump wants to do. And because he's a gazillionaire, he wants to, yeah, get more. So those are my two representatives in the Senate. So, all right, I guess that's it. Listen, guys, I've got to get my phone back for tomorrow. Throwback Thursday. Okay, I'm going to try. I'm going to use all the powers I have to do my damnedest to get them back. Otherwise, we're in trouble. I actually had someone calling in, a guest tomorrow, and it ain't going to happen if I can't have the phone. Jeez.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.